Say hi, everybody. Hi. Ryder and I both say hello, everybody. Huh? Yeah. He's just a little spoiled. Huh? Just a little. Thank you. Just a little spoiled, huh? Oh, it's been a day, huh? Yeah, it's been a long day, huh? Anyway, I'm echoing. Um, Hold on a minute. Let me see something. Is that there? Hold on. Might be because I have my earbuds in and they're connected to both my phone and the Chromebook. All right. Good evening, everybody. It is Thursday, which means it is AA night. It's been a day, y'all. It's been a day. And not a good one. But I'm trying to think for the positive of things. Somehow. Will sleeping. Uh, I hope you're enjoying your visit so far. I'm talking to Lily, my sister. She is visiting her daughter, my niece. Miss you, Stacy. Anyways, my name's Sandra, and I'm an alcoholic. So, this is the judgment-free zone. So please be kind to each other in the comments and the chats. That's good. So yeah, it is an AA meeting, just so you know. Not everybody here or in the chat or the comments are the alcoholic. Get out of there, writer. Now. You're not needed in the kitchen. We don't need you in the kitchen, man. Come here. Come here. You're just standing here. Anyway, so, yeah. Let's get the meeting started, I guess. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So, we are reading the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions book, and that's where I get all the steps and traditions that I read. So, let's go ahead and get started. 1. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over the care of God as we understood Him. 4. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5. Admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6. We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defective characters. 7. Humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8. Made a list of all persons we had harmed and become willing to make amends to them all. 9. Made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10. Continue to take personal inventory and when wrong, promptly admit it. 11. Self-group prayer and meditation to improve our contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. And 12. Having had spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. And because we are in the traditions part of the book, I will read the 12 traditions. 1. Our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon AA unity. 2. For our group purpose, there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God, as He may express Himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants, they do not govern. 3. The only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking. 4. Each group should be autonomous except in matters affecting other groups or AA as a whole. 5. Each group has but one primary purpose, to carry its message to the alcoholics who still suffers. 6. An AA group ought never endorse, finance, or lend the AA name in any related facility or outside enterprise, lest problems of money, property, and prestige divert us from our primary purpose. 7. Every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. 8. Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. 9. AA as such ought never be organized but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. 10. Alcoholics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues, hence the AA name ought never be drawn into public controversy. 11. Our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films. And 12, anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities. And we are in traditions, and today we start tradition 1. And this one is short, so I might do 2 today. 1. Our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon AA unity. The unity of Alcoholics Anonymous is the most cherished quality our society has. Our lives, the lives of all to come, depend squarely upon it. We stay whole or AA dies. Without unity, the heart of AA would cease to beat. Our world arteries would no longer carry the life-giving grace of God. His gift to us would be spent aimlessly back again in their caves. Alcoholics would reproach us and say, "What a great thing AA might have been." Does this mean, some will anxiously ask, that in AA the individual doesn't count for much? Is he to be dominated by his group and swallowed up in it? We may certainly answer this question with a loud no. We believe there isn't a fellowship on earth which lavishes more devoted care upon its individual members. Surely there is none which more jealously guards the individual's right to think, talk, and act as he wishes. No AA can compel another to do anything. Nobody can be punished or expelled. Our 12 steps to recovery are suggestions. The 12 traditions which guarantee AA unity contain not a single don't. They repeatedly say we ought, but never you must. To many minds, all this liberty for the individual spells sheer anarchy. Every newcomer, every friend who looks at AA for the first time is greatly puzzled. They see liberty verging on license, yet they recognize at once that AA has an irresistible strength of purpose and action. How, they ask, can such a crowd of anarchists function at all? How can they possibly place their common welfare first? What in heaven's name holds them together? Those who look closely soon have the key to the strange paradox. The AA member has to conform to the principles of recovery. His life actually depends upon obedience to spiritual principles. If he deviates too far, the penalty is sure and swift. He sickens and dies. At first, he goes along because he must, but later he discovers a way of life he really wants to live. Moreover, he finds he cannot keep this priceless gift unless he gives it away. Neither he nor anybody else can survive unless he carries the AA message. The moment this 12th step work forms a group. Another discovery is made that most individuals cannot recover unless there is a group. Realization dawns that he is but a small part of a great whole, that no personal sacrifice is too great for preservation of the fellowship. He learns that the clamor of desire and ambitions within him must be silenced whenever these could damage the group. It becomes plain that the group must survive or the individual will not. So, at the outset, how best to live and work together as groups become the prime question. In the world about us, we saw personalities destroying whole peoples. The struggle for wealth, power, and prestige was tearing humanity apart as never before. If strong people were stalemated in the search for peace and harmony, what was to become of our erratic band of alcoholics as we had once struggled and prayed for individual recovery? Just so earnestly did we commence to quest for the principle through which AA itself might survive on anvils of experience. The structure of our society was hammered out countless times in as many cities and hamlets. We reenacted the story of Eddie Rickenbacker and his courageous company when their plane crashed in the Pacific. Like us, they had suddenly found themselves saved from passing, but still floating upon a peerless sea. How well they saw that their common welfare came first. None might become selfish of water or bread. Each needed to consider the others, and in abiding faith, they knew they must find their real strength, and this they did find, in measuring to transcend all the defects of their frail craft. Every test of uncertainty, pain, fear, and despair, and even the passing of one. Thus has it been with AA. By faith and by works we have been able to build upon the lessons of an incredible experience. They live today in the 12 traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous, which, God willing, shall sustain us in unity for so long as He may need us. And so it took one to start these great meetings and 12-step traditions. But we didn't know until later in the AA book, the big book, that there needed to be anonymity and all those other things that the traditions provide and suggest that we follow to make it better for everyone that's in the group, and keep each other, keep each other's stories in the group instead of going outside the group and talking about somebody that has a different story. And talking about your own story is fine, but when you go and try and talk about somebody else, which is why I always say in my meetings, it's a judgment-free zone. And if you're in the chat and the comments, then that means it's all right for me to say your name, unless if you put in the chat or comment that you don't want me to, then I won't say your name. And that's how I keep it, try to keep it in the group. So I don't go outside here and tell somebody about somebody else that's not in here, what somebody else said in the group. So, just so you know. Tradition 2. For our group purpose, there is but one ultimate authority, a living God as He may express Himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants, they do not govern. Where does AA get its direction? Who runs it? This too is a puzzler for every friend and newcomer. When told that our society has no president having authority to govern it, no treasurer who can compel the payment of any dues, no board of directors who can cast an erring member into outer darkness, who indeed no AA can give another a directive and enforce obedience. Our friends gasp and exclaim, "This simply can't be. There must be an angle somewhere." These practical folks then read Tradition 2 and learn that the sole authority in AA is a loving God as He may express Himself in the group conscience. They dubiously ask an experienced AA member if this really works. The member, saying to all appearances, immediately answers, "Yes, it definitely does." The friends muttered that this looks vague, nebulous, pretty naive to them. Then they commenced to watch us with speculative eyes, pick up a fragment of AA history and soon have the solid facts. What are these facts of AA life which brought us to this apparently impractical principle? Dondo, a good AA move, let us say, to Middletown, USA. Alone now, he reflects that he may not be able to stay sober or even alive unless he passes on to other alcoholics what was so freely given him. He feels a spiritual and ethical compulsion because hundreds may be suffering without or within reach of his help. Then, too, he misses his home group. He needs other alcoholics as much as they need him. He visits preachers, doctors, editors, policemen, and bartenders, with the result that Middletown now has a group and he is the founder. Being the founder, he is at first the boss. Who else could be? Very soon, though, he assumed authority to run everything, begins to be shared with the first alcoholics he has helped. At this moment, the Bennigan dictator becomes the chairman of a committee composed of his friends. These are the growing group hierarchy of service. Self-appointed, of course, because there is no other way. In a matter of months, AA booms in Middletown. The founders and his friends channel spirituality to newcomers, hire halls, make hospital arrangements, and entreat their wives to brew gallons of coffee. Being on the human side, the founder and his friends may bask a little in glory. They say to one another, perhaps it would be a good idea if we continue to keep a firm hand on AA in this town. After all, we are experienced. Besides, look at all the good we've done these drunks. They should be grateful. True founders and their friends are sometimes wiser and more humble than this, but more often at this stage they are not. Growing pains now beset the group. Panhandlers panhandle, lonely hearts pine, problems descend like an avalanche. Still more important murmurs are heard in the body politic, which swell into a loud cry. Do these old-timers think they can run this group forever? Let's have an election. The founder of his friends are hurt and depressed. They rush from crisis to crisis and from member to member, pleading, but it's no use. The revolution is on, the group conscience is about to take over. Now comes the election. If the founder and his friends have served well, they may, to their surprise, be reinstated for a time. If, however, they have heavily resisted the the rising tide of democracy, they may be summarily beached. In either case, the group now has a so-called rotating committee very sharply limited in its authority. In no sense whatever can its members govern or direct the group. They are servants. Theirs is the sometimes thankless privilege of doing the group's chores, headed by the chairman. They look after public relations and arrange meetings. Their treasurer, strictly accountable, takes money from the hat that is passed, banks it, pays the rent and other bills, and makes a regular report at business meetings. The secretary sees that literature is on the table, looks after the phone answering service, answers the mail, and sends out notices of meetings. Such are the simple services that enable the group to function. The committee gives no spiritual advice, judges no conduct, issues no order. Every one of them may be promptly eliminated at the next election if they try this. And so they make the belated discovery that they are really servants, not senators. These are universal experiences. Thus, throughout AA does the group conscious decree the terms upon which its leaders shall serve. This brings us straight to the question, does AA have a real leadership? Most ethically, the answer is yes. Notwithstanding the apparent lack of it, let's turn again to the deposed founder and his friends. What becomes of them? As their grief and anxiety wear away, a subtle change begins. Ultimately, they divide into two classes known in AA slang as elder statesmen and bleeding deacons. The elder statesman is the one who sees the wisdom of the group's decision, who holds no resentment over his reduced status, whose judgment, fortified by considerable experience, is sound, and who is willing to sit quietly on the sidelines, patiently awaiting developments. The bleeding deacon is one who is just as surely convinced that the group cannot get along without him, who constantly connives for re-election to office, and who continues to be consumed with self-pity. A few hemorrhage so badly that, drained of all AA spirit and principle, they get drunk. At times, the AA landscape seems to be littered with bleeding forms. I gotta find my spot. Nearly every old timer in our society has gone through this process in some degree. Happily, most of them survive and live to become elder statesmen. They become the real and permanent leadership of AA. Theirs is the quiet opinion, the sure knowledge and humble example that resolve a crisis. When sorely perplexed, the group inevitably turns to them for advice. They become the voice of the group conscience. In fact, these are the true voice of AA, of Alcoholics Anonymous. They do not drive by mandate. They lead by example. This, our group conscious, well advised by its elders, will be in the long run wiser than any single leader. When AA was only 3 years old, an event occurred demonstrating this principle. One of the first members of AA's, entirely contrary to his own desires, was obliged to conform to group opinion. Here is the story in his words. One day I was doing a 12-step job at a hospital in New York. The proprietor, I don't know how to say that word, guys. Charlie summoned me to his office. Bill, he said, I think it's a shame that you are financially so hard up. All around you, these drunks are getting well and making money, but you're giving this work full time and you're broke. It isn't fair. Charlie fished in his desk and came up with an old financial statement. Handing it to me, he continued, this shows the kind of money the hospital used to make back in the 1920s, thousands of dollars a month. It should be doing just as well now, and it would if only you'd help me. So why don't you move your work in here? I'll give you an office, a decent drawing account, and a very healthy slice of the profits. 3 years ago, when my head doctor, Silkworth, began to tell me of the idea of helping drunks by spirituality, I thought it was crackpot stuff. But I've changed my mind. Someday, this bunch of ex-drunks of yours will fill Madison Square Garden, and I don't see why you should starve meanwhile. What I propose is perfectly ethical. You can become a lay therapist and more successful than anybody in the business. I was bowled over. There were a few twinges of conscience until I saw how really ethical Charlie's proposal was. There was nothing wrong whatever with becoming a lay therapist. I thought of Lois coming home exhausted from the department store each day, only to cook supper for a houseful of drunks who weren't paying board. I thought of the large sum of money still owing my Wall Street creditors. I thought of a few of my alcoholic friends who were making as much money as ever. Why shouldn't I do as well as they? Although I asked Charlie for a little time to consider it, my own mind was about made up. Racing back to Brooklyn on the subway, I had a seeming flash of divine guidance. It was only a single sentence, but most convincing. In fact, it came right out of the Bible. A voice kept saying to me, the laborer is worthy of his hire. Arriving home, I found Lois cooking as usual, while three drunks looked hungrily on from the kitchen door. I drew her aside and told her the glorious news. She looked interested, but not as excited as I thought she would be or should be. It was meeting night. Although none of the alcoholics we boarded seemed to get sober, some others had. With their wives, they crowded into our downstairs parlor. At once, I bust into the story of my opportunity. Never shall I forget their impassive faces and the steady gaze they focused upon me. With waning enthusiasm, my tailor trailed off to the end. There was a long silence. Almost timidly, one of my friends began to speak. We know how hard up you are, Bill. It bothers us a lot. We often wonder what we might do about it. But I think I speak for everyone here when I say that what you now propose bothers us an awful lot more. The speaker's voice grew more confident. Don't you realize, he went on, that you can never become a professional as generous as Charlie has been to us? Don't you see that we can't tie this thing up with how hospitals or any other? You tell us that Charlie's proposal is ethical. Sure, it's ethical, but what we've got won't run on ethics only. It has to be better. Sure, Charlie's idea is good, but it isn't good enough. This is a matter of life or death, Bill, and nothing but the best, the very best will do. Challengingly, my friends looked at me as their spokesman continued. Bill, haven't you often said right here in this meeting that sometimes the good is the enemy of the best? Well, this is a plain case of it. You can't do this thing to us. So spoke the group conscience. The group was right and I was wrong. The voice on the subway was not the voice of God. Here was the true voice. Welling up out of my friends, I listened and thank God I obeyed. And that's the truth. I mean, I've been to a few different groups since I've been sober, and they do only take donations, whatever, we do. My home group asked for $2 for the coffee and expenses for the rent and all those things that we provide in a meeting. But if you don't have it, you don't have it. And, that's the only thing is we don't expect for people to be able to pay a lot for a meeting because, after all, we're alcoholics, recovering alcoholics, and that was one of our biggest things was having money for that drink. And so if you do have whatever you can put in, it's very grateful and helpful no matter how much it is. And you don't get turned away if you can't afford to put something in the hat. And you're welcome still to have that coffee and all those things because we have to do things as a group. And making those decisions on somebody getting paid for doing meetings is a big thing that defeats the purpose. The whole purpose of AA is to share it for free because that's what we're getting is the the steps and the traditions and the meetings for free. And you know, I've had to ask for money for gas from my sponsor just so I could get to a meeting. Um, and I didn't have to pay her back. And that's the whole point is we help each other out, even if it is free, because that's what we're taught. And meetings are supposed to be free. I'm not going to charge a friend of mine to talk to me about being an alcoholic. I'm not going to make somebody pay for a cup of coffee just because they need somebody to talk to because they're an alcoholic. If I can give somebody a cup of coffee to help them get away from alcohol, I'm going to do it. But that's what my friend did for me by having me start the meetings, going to meetings. And, I thank that friend all the time for asking me to go to that meeting because that was the start of my true sobriety. And without that friend suggesting that I meet at an AA meeting, I would have never gone. And I thank God every day that I did go to that meeting and that I still do my meetings. I don't go to meetings very often, but I do these here. I do need to go to a meeting pretty soon because, I got to work on me too. Um, just doing meetings from home, it doesn't keep me on that right path. I've been struggling lately because I don't know, I got hurt at work when I'm at workman's comp, and today I got told that I no longer have a job. So go figure, just the luck, right? So I've been in self pity all day. But I need to work on my shoulder and get it better and get back on my fitness journey. Maybe I can feel better. But my face ran thin today. Just a little. It is what it is. Life happened. You gotta move on. Anyway, that's what AA is for, and being able to know the things that you need to know, the steps you need to do, and the whys we do the meetings and how we do the meetings. I started this meeting just on a whim. I didn't think. I asked my friend. Uh, I asked her. She's been a good friend of mine since I started my channel. And I asked her, I said, what do you think about me doing AA meetings? She's like, well, I don't know. Some people are pretty judgmental. I was like, well, I'm not worried about that. People didn't judge me anyway. And so I started doing my meetings, and she watched, and she said, you did excellent. You need to keep doing it. And so I've been doing it ever since. And I don't do the meetings just to help alcoholics. I do these meetings to help the families that don't know how to go about being around somebody that is just getting sober and how they're feeling and things like that. Because I am an old timer, but I'm still a newcomer because I still remember all those new days. And being able to share the things that help me and keep me on the sober helps me help others, and so I keep coming and doing the meetings, and even if I don't want to, unless if I'm sick or I'm out of town, and I don't go out of town very often, unfortunately. I need out of town a lot, but um, my sister will be 11 years sobriety on Sunday, and I'm really proud of her. She's come a long way, and I'll see you Sunday when you get home. You're working on your acting and you're using toenail clippers to cut it. I've done that, but anyways, it's been a testing day for me. Just went back to regular duty last week, and now I don't have a job. So, anyway, that's about it, guys. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Keep going back. It works if you work it.